We'll wait till she starts the recording. There you go. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Cooking 5-Way series. Today's star ingredient, or the protagonist, is oats. My name is Piali Callahan. As Nancy already said, both of us work at the Howard County Library Miller Branch, and we are so happy to have with us today Razan Sahuri, who will show us a few recipes featuring oats right from her kitchen. But before we hand it over to Razan, just a few words about her. Razan works at the University of Maryland Extension. She is a Howard County's Maryland SNAP-8 nutrition educator. Razan holds a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics and a master's degree in public health. Through her work with UME, Razan partners with Howard County Public School System, Head Start Centers, and the Howard County Food Bank to deliver nutrition education to students, parents, and teachers. These collaborations also involve leveraging resources between Maryland SNAP-8 and local communities agencies to facilitate greater access to and availability of healthy food options and influence the adoption of policy, systems, and physical environment changes related to a healthier lifestyle. So without much further ado, Razan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nancy and Piali. And I'm so excited that everybody's in my kitchen today. Happy New Year. As they mentioned, today's star ingredient is oats. Let me go ahead and share my screen and just give me a thumbs up if you can see this. Can everybody see this? Okay. So this is very brief. Today we're going to spend 30 minutes talking about oats, but first we're going to talk about benefits of oats, different types of oats, and then I'm going to walk you through 5 different ways you can use oats in your kitchen. And then I'm going to demonstrate 2 of the recipes I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to open it up for Q&As. We might also open it up during food prep when I'm doing some work on the stove. So let's get started. First of all, when we talk about oats, we hear that they're super healthy, they're super great for you, and that's true. One of the main ingredients or the main important aspects of oats is that they're whole grain, they contain fiber. I don't know if you've heard this before, but there's soluble fiber, insoluble fiber that are both present in oats. It keeps you regular, it keeps your gut regular, it makes you feel fuller for longer, and it also decreases your risk, or it helps in decreasing your risk of coronary heart disease and also some cancers. It's also a great source of protein. And as you know, protein helps the body. It's the building block of the body. It's also great for your nails, your hair. And then oats are also a great source of B vitamins and iron that are very important for our overall wellness, our overall energy. So all in all, it's a nutrient-dense whole grain that is very nutritious. It's nutritious. It's delicious. I'd like to say that, with the right recipes, and it's also low cost, which is also great. So when we go to the grocery store to buy oats, you find a plethora of, sorry, I need to remove this bowl. There's a plethora of choices. And when I say choices, it's not the name brands that I'm talking to, it's the different kinds of oats. So you see the steel cut, also known as Irish or Scottish. And usually those are the closest to the original form of the oat kernel. Usually what they do is they just cut it into once or twice. So basically it's a little bit smaller, and it takes roughly from 15 to 60 minutes. It depends on the type. It's usually chewy and nutty. The other one is rolled oats, also known as old-fashioned. And they're a little bit more processed, so they're toasted, hulled, steamed, and then they flatten it. And usually we find it in mueslis, in granola, and usually cooking time decreases basically from 15 to 20 minutes. So we cut it by roughly 40 minutes. And then we have quick oats. Quick oats usually They're just like rolled oats, but they're also cut before, so they're smaller. And when they're smaller, it takes basically less time to also prepare it. And usually they're used in baked goods and with breads. And then finally, there's instant oats. And instant oats usually are the ones we see in packets. There are ones that are not flavored, but usually we see them flavored. So you just add water to it or milk or a milk substitute. And with those, just be careful if you're buying these, just to read the label, because usually they have added sugar to them. So there's the flavoring, and it's the same thing, but they're pre-cooked, dried, steamed, and since they're more processed, they take even less time to prepare. Moving on, sorry, for some reason, okay, yeah. So moving to the 5 different ways, we're going to go through all the meals. First of all, breakfast. When we think of oats, and I don't know if we have the answers. Nancy, do we have the answers to the poll? If people answered how do they usually use oats?
We do. We had 97% of the people use it in
Breakfast, I would guess.
breakfast.
Yes. So breakfast is usually when we think of oats, we think of breakfast. We think of oatmeal. Oatmeal is, especially during this time of year, I think it's warm, it's comforting. So, oatmeal or porridge is usually what we think about. You're going to receive 2 recipes, the apple cinnamon and banana nut oatmeal. But the nice thing about oatmeal, you don't really need a recipe. You can use any fruit you have at home with your oats. It can be fresh, frozen, canned, even dried. You can add nuts to it. You can do it the way you like. And with that said, some people like it sweeter. Maybe you can add to it. Your liquid can be water. It can be milk, low-fat milk. It can be a milk substitute. So the nice thing about it is that it's very forgiving. So you can play around the way you like. Another alternative to oatmeal oatmeal is the overnight oats. Overnight oats are almost the same concept, where you add liquid to your oats, put them in the fridge overnight, and in the morning they'll be ready. The difference is you'll have them cold. So some people you might enjoy this more in the summer. Just keep that in mind. And other than oatmeal or overnight oats, you can also use it in your pancakes or your waffles. You can just add, substitute some of your regular flour with some oats. You can also add your oat flour, and then you don't need to buy oat flour. You can just put the oats you have at home in your food processor or blender, and they'll become fine, and then you can use them. Or if you like that chunky, texture, you can still add those. You can add it to your smoothies as well. So there's different ways to add it in your breakfast. The second way to consume it is, sorry, I'm trying to move. Yeah, is lunch. And this is interchangeable between lunch and dinner. Over here, there's a black bean burger, and this one I'm going to demonstrate today. So oats work as a binding agent, and definitely you can use this, for dinner. I thought of this as a leftover, maybe lunch that dinner that you can bring to work. Although we're working from home now, but hopefully soon we can bring it to work, with a salad, or even, kids can take it to school. You can, make it in a bun, or you can add, just lettuce, like although the picture has a bun, but, like a lettuce wrap. So oats work as a binding agent. So you can make any burger you like. It doesn't have to be vegetarian. It can be, vegan, or you can add the meat that you like and then turn it into a burger. And as I mentioned, dinner as well, since it's interchangeable and it works as a binding agent for dinner, there's this recipe that you're also going home with, which is a glazed meatloaf. And you can turn it into your classic meatloaf, or you can take that recipe and turn it into buns, into patties, sorry. So you can do that. If you're into risotto, you can use oats instead of rice to make your risotto. You can also add oats in your soup. I do that. Oats like liquid, so just make sure you add more liquid if you don't like it thick. You can also add it as a topping. So if you're making a casserole and you want something crunchy, or instead of breadcrumbs, you can totally use oats for that. And then snacks. And for snacks, you're going home with two recipes. The first is a pumpkin oatmeal energy bite, and then an energy bar. The energy bars that I'm also going to show you how to make. They're very easy. Kids can help in the kitchen with that, which is nice, you know, depending on their age, but they can stir it, they can mix, they can, you know, make the balls with you. And I feel those recipes, the snacks, can also work for breakfast, or, you know, if you're exercising and you feel like you need something, you know, extra energy, you can definitely have those. And then we cannot talk about all of this and not mention dessert, because I think with the poll, if I'm not mistaken, we have dessert was the second winner. Is that correct, Nancy? Did I see that correct?
That is correct, 52%.
Okay. Exactly. So, you know, oats are great. We can use them in so many different ways when it comes to dessert. You can, you know, substitute, or you can make it the star. So you're going home with a carrot oatmeal cookies. They're amazing. I make them at home and I love them. My family loves them. So definitely, you know, they're nutritious, although, you know, they're dessert, but you're still getting carrots in them. And when you make your own dessert at home, you can, you know, other than, you know, your regular cookies, you can add it with your baking, or if you're into crumbles, like for example, an apple crumble, you can add that as a topping. So it's really versatile. You can add it in so many different ways. With that said, let's move to the cooking part over here.
Hey, Razan, before we get started, we have just a
Yes.
couple quick questions for you. Are
Sure.
all oats gluten-free?
That's a great question. Let me turn my my first camera on, my cooking camera. So in nature, oats are gluten-free. But what happens is the factories that they're processed in usually are factories that process other grains like wheat that contains gluten. So they become cross-contaminated with gluten. So if somebody is gluten insensitive or intolerant, or they're trying to stay away from gluten, they should make sure that to check the label, because sometimes there are some facilities that do not have gluten in them. So you know that your oats have not been contaminated with gluten. Elsewise, you know, they'll have gluten. But that's a great question.
And then just one other quick question is for the burger and the meatloaf recipes that you referred to that they're going to get along with the class, what kind of oats do you put in? Do you use rolled oats? Can you give us a quick rundown on rolled versus quick oats?
Yes, so I used rolled oats, but you can use any oats. So they're interchangeable. The difference is the size. So if you like them more, you know, bigger or smaller, that's one thing. And then just make sure the time, you know, quick oats take less time than rolled oats. So it depends on, you know, the oats they're using, just to factor that in when you're preparing the recipe. But they're definitely interchangeable.
Great, thank you. All right, let's get cooking.
Okay, can you see this? Are you going to pin this, Nancy?
I can do it.
Yep,
Okay,
I think.
perfect. So I washed my hands before we started. And we're going to start with the energy bars because they're going to take a little bit longer, especially when we put it on the stove. But for this recipe, we're going to need, first of all, 1 cup of honey. And can you see that? Yeah, that's 1 cup of honey. And then,
Hey, Razan, would you not share your screen? And do you want the whole to be?
I can stop sharing. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
There
Is
you
that better? Okay.
Perfect.
So,
yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have 1 cup of honey and 1 cup of peanut butter, and those are going to go into a pot, and we're going to mix them together. After they melt, we are going to add the other ingredients, and the other ingredients are, drums rolling, of course, 3.5 cups of oats, and this is great. half a cup of raisins, and then half a cup of carrots, shredded carrots, washed and shredded. And then also half a cup of shredded coconut. And then while you're prepping, turn your oven to 350. While it's heating, okay, I'm going to, okay. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to mix the peanut butter. And as you know, peanut butter is also a source of protein. So this is, although they're, energy bars, they're also full of with protein. Okay. So we're going to mix these together and it will melt. If we have any questions until they melt, I can answer those.
I don't see any new questions. Do you want us to put up our poll about how
Sure.
they hear about the class?
Absolutely.
Well, she's mixing there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, until, the peanut butter melts.
Hey, Razan, there is a question. How high is the heat turned up on the stove?
So I turned it to, I started with high just to make the pot warm. And then now it's medium to low. I didn't want to burn the honey.
And then somebody's asking, I assume you can use any nut butter?
Absolutely, you can. Thank you for mentioning that. Even in the recipe, it says you can use any nut butter. And then if you're allergic or you're trying to stay away from nuts, you can also use seed butter, like sunflower seeds, and that works. So it's almost, so once it melts, just like you can see here, I'm going to turn it off. So it doesn't take long. You'll just add the other ingredients. So I'm adding the raisins, the shredded carrots, and I love that it has carrots in it. It's coconut, and of course, our star ingredient, oats. It's it's 3.5 cups versus half cup from everything else, except for the peanut butter and the honey. And you just stir it. And of course, when you're doing this at home, you have time to, stir it better. Just to save time, I'm trying to rush through this. Then let's go back to, let's see. Okay. So you bring a baking dish and you grease it. What you're going to do is you're going to add the mixture in this and then bake it for 25 minutes. So
And Razan, we do have a question about when you mentioned making oat flour using a food processor. Can you do the same with almonds to make almond flour?
Absolutely. So what I do is with almonds as well, with almond pulp, that it works as well. So I make my own almond milk. So I just add water to my almond. And then after I use the blender and I sieve it, I have the remaining and I heat that. I put it in the oven and I dry it, and that works as well. So we should put it in the baking dish, and you can use a spoon to assemble this, but I've noticed that it's easier to use my hand. So this is what I'm doing today. But if you prefer using, you know, a spoon, you can do that. Just spread it. And just make sure you apply some pressure to it. Okay. Are we good on time, by the way?
We're good on time.
Okay.
And I'm going to share the results of our poll too.
So after you're done with this, you just put it in the oven, and I have TV magic. I made another one. So you put it in the oven for 25 minutes, and then this is how it will look like. Let me, then you can, you know, cut it into 24 bars. It's a little bit sticky. So I'm just going to, you know, cut it just to show you how it looks like. I'm sorry for the...
We do have a question about how thick is the layer in the pan that you're cutting?
I'm going to say this much. It's not very thick. So 1/2 inch, 1 centimeter, I'd say, or 1.5. Okay, let's see. It is very sticky, so I should have, you know, taken my time doing this, but I just wanted to show you. Can you see how it looks like? Yeah.
That looks delicious.
Yes. So you can cut it, you can put it in a container, and then it'll be good to go. Our second recipe, which is the bean burger, the black bean burger. What you need to do is you need 1 can of low sodium washed and drained beans. And you can also use dried beans if you have those. You can squish them with a fork. I have this masher, it's my potato masher. So if we have questions while I mash, please go ahead.
People think it looks delicious.
Oh, thank you. It tastes good. And the nice thing about these recipes, if you feel that they're too sweet, for example, because of the honey, you can reduce the amount. All our recipes are forgiving. You can play around, and you know, if you have an ingredient or if you don't have an ingredient, you can substitute. You know, if you don't have coconut, shredded coconut, you know, you don't have to go buy it just for this recipe. You can just omit it. If you'd like to add nuts to it, you can. So after you finish mashing this, we add 1 egg, basically to help it, to bind it. Okay. Now I'm going to wear my gloves. I don't know if you've noticed, but I love playing with my food. I hope you like to play with your food as well. And that's something else that's, you know, if you have kids at home and you're trying to excite them about working in the kitchen, they can maybe help you with these things. So you can mix this, you can use your fork to mix this. I like to use my hands. I feel like I'm more in control, but you don't have to if you're not comfortable doing that. After that, there's you can add 1/2 cup of oats. Okay, 2 scallions. So I got 2 of these scallions and I cut them into smaller pieces. So this is how they are. If you don't have scallions, you don't have to use them. You can also use, you know, regular onions. And then 2 tablespoons of fresh cilantro, chopped. And again, if you don't have that, you can add basil. You can add any fresh herbs. If you don't have fresh, you can also use dried. That works as well. No stress. And then 1 clove of garlic. It smells good. Let me tell you that. And then 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 of dried oregano. Again, if you don't have dried oregano, you don't have to use it. If you have Italian spices, you can add those. So what you're going to do is you mix it and you're going to turn this into 4 different patties. So we're going to turn our and I've realized that if you put it in the fridge for a little bit, it will become it will bind better, but you don't have to. So you just, take this, put it on a heated skillet and let it, you can oil it before, oil your skillet, or you don't have to, depending on your skillet.
And Razan, we do have a question. What kind of oats did you use for the black bean burger?
Rolled oats. I used the same. And again, TV magic. I prepared the batch before just to save us time. So this is how it looks like. I don't know, can you see it? And this is how thick it is. So, if you like it smaller or thicker, you can play with that, but you'll have 1 can of beans would yield 4 of these. And then, you can add it to your burger of choice, your bun of choice. Whole wheat is better. But we have burger right here. And then you can add yogurt to it or ketchup, whatever you fancy. And voila, that's your bean burger. And I'm going to stop sharing from here. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, there was a question saying, can we freeze the black bean patties?
Absolutely. Yes, you can. So you can actually freeze oats, oats by themselves, although you really don't need to, but you can put them in the freezer in an airtight container and they're good for a year. When you make a patty, though, since they have eggs and, beans, they're not as good for that long. I wouldn't, leave them for longer than, a couple of months since they have eggs. But you can put them in the freezer. And then the nice thing about oats, when you put them in the freezer, you can just take them out and cook them. You don't need to wait for them to thaw. But that's a good question. Actually, today when I was preparing this, I made a lot of patties and I decided to freeze some for later.
And we do have a recommendation that you can also make them into fun shapes for kids.
Yes, you can definitely by turn them into different shapes. You can use your cookie cutter. And then all of these ingredients are available at the food bank, which is great. So, oats are usually available at the food bank. And the nice thing is, although you might find 1 month, you might find rolled oats, the next month you might find something else. It doesn't matter. You can interchange, use them interchangeably, but just make sure you read on the packet and know how much time it takes or the size of it. So if you want it smaller, or if you can also turn it into flour. And then if you buy, either if you get it at the food bank or if you go to the grocery store and they have a sale on, a lot of oats, just buy it, get it, put it in an airtight container in your pantry and somewhere dark, and it'll be good for some time.
And we have a question that for our vegetarians and vegans out there who don't want to use eggs to bind, do you have a recommendation about something else they can use to bind for the burgers? And then another question was about the recipe says rice. Are we substituting oats for rice?
Yes, so you're absolutely right. So if you look in the notes below, it says you can substitute your rice with oats. And you can also, if you don't have oats, although, today's star is oats, if you have quinoa, you can use quinoa instead. So you can interchangeably use that. So for the egg question to bind, usually oats by themselves and liquid can bind your patty. So you don't really need eggs to bind it. Oats usually work as the binder in those recipes. The moment you add water to oats, they become gelish, gel-like, and that's the binding. So I think you can just omit the eggs altogether, and that won't be a problem.
And we also have a question. Do you have a favorite kind of brand of oats, or is one oat as good as the next?
Absolutely. Any kind you find, oats are great. It doesn't matter what kind you buy. You can buy generic, you can buy your favorite brand, you can compare and get the cheaper one, but it doesn't matter. I personally, go with a cheaper brand. It doesn't matter. But it's personal preference, and you can get whatever you like.
And we do have a question that you did say that the ingredients are available at the food bank, but if not, any of the ingredients that were used today would be available in any grocery store?
Absolutely. So all the ingredients that most of the ingredients, I'm not going to say all of them, are available at the food bank, like, for example, or the Howard County Food Bank, like the canned beans, oats, peanut butter, but then things like eggs, sometimes they're not available. It depends, or the fresh ingredients or the herbs, but you can also get those at the grocery store. And all of our ingredients are, they're not very, you can find them in most of the grocery stores or all of the grocery stores. And as I said before, don't make a trip just to go buy, let's say, cilantro or coriander, since the recipe asks for that. If you don't have it, and you have something else, you can substitute. If you don't have anything, that's fine. You don't even have to add that ingredient. All the recipes that I shared are very forgiving. You can use what you have. And then part of the fun in the kitchen is to also experiment and see, if I add something else, how would that taste? So no pressure. Don't just, don't go shopping just for those ingredients. You can, you can use anything you have in your pantry. At least the majority of the ingredients, you can pull off that recipe without all the ingredients.
Awesome, thanks. And so if you have any more questions, please type them into the chat. And Piali, can you share what we have coming up from Razan for a future classes?
Yeah, doing just that, typing it.
Yes, I think our next session is on the 9th. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And we're using canned tomatoes. I'm not sure we can use canned tomatoes for dessert next time, but we'll find 5 different ways to use canned tomatoes.
You made me hungry, Razan. This was awesome.
Well, I'm glad.
Really fantastic.
Thank you.
So does anybody have any remaining questions for Razan today?
Where there was a question, and I'm going to get it now. All right, the question is, can you use canned foods beyond the date on the can?
So usually the date on the can is a recommendation. After that date, usually the quality of the food starts deteriorating. It depends, from ingredient and ingredient. Personally, I do not recommend that, but to each their own. But usually just the quality of the ingredients will definitely start deteriorating. How long do you have to bake the patties? So the patties are roughly 4 to 5 minutes on each side. But then it depends if you make them thicker. If you make them smaller and thicker, they're going to need more time. And if you like to make them thinner, they will take less time. But on average, 4 minutes.
And the temperature that you cooked them at, was that 400 degrees?
The patties?
Yes.
It was on medium heat. Although I think the recipe says high. I think in the recipe, it specifies exactly how much, what's, the temperature. And for the bars, it is 350 for 25 minutes. And you can use any oil, any cooking oil. I know somebody just asked about the oil, but so you can use any oil you use for cooking. I personally use avocado oil, at home. I cook with avocado oil, and then I use olive oil for my salads. But you can use any oil.
I'm going to go ahead and share the results of our poll again to show you that most of us are using our oats at breakfast time, dessert time, and snack time. So we're really glad that you have given us a recipe that we can use as a main course, because only 3% of us have done that before. So that's awesome. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And I hope everybody experiments. And then you have my email. So if anybody has any question or they'd like to share what they made or their recipes, so please, feel free to send me a picture of what you've made, or if you have any questions.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Razan. Piali, is there anything else that you can think of before we let people
No.
go? And we will see you in February. What did we talk about? What else we have coming up in the series,
Okay.
too, Piali?
Yes, that's what I was just going to quickly say. So on February 9th, Razan is going to show us ways to cook with canned tomatoes. On March 9th, canned chicken and fish. On April 13th, canned beans. May 11th, rice. June 8th, peanut butter. And this is all available on our website in classes and events. If you just go to Snap Cooking 5 Ways, you will see the series. And a month prior to the class, you would be able to sign up for the series. And we hope you will come back and enjoy the kitchen with Razan and us.
Yes, I look forward to having you all back in my kitchen, hopefully soon.
And to make it easier, Piali, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these are all scheduled on the second Tuesday of the month?
Yes, second Tuesday, same time, 2 o'clock, just to not confuse with different timings.
Yep. So we will see you on the second Tuesday again for more cooking. If you want to, we'll stick around for a minute, but we would enjoy the rest of your day. If you have a last minute question, you can go ahead and type it in the chat. We'll be here for a few minutes longer, but thank you so much for joining us today for In the Kitchen with Razan.
Thank you.